I hope that my work in this field has been able to break down barriers that have been there in the past. We've tried to make gut health so esoteric and technical, when I think the fundamental principles of it are what should be emphasized. Symbiotic relationship between what happens in our gut and the rest of the body, and I think we can fuel and nourish that with a whole foods diet. If someone's healing their gut, that's going to be a different diet to someone who's nourishing their gut long term. So if you don't have a good balanced microbiome, you can have the whole foods diet and have all the carbohydrates and stuff, but you'll end up just feeding the bad bugs because they've taken over. Relax. Just relax. Like, slow down. We're rushing ourselves. It's like we're in a rush to get to our deathbed. It's crazy. We rush through life and then we retire thinking that that's going to make us happy, and we get sick and then sit in the hospital for 10 to 20 years in and out, and then we pass away and we regret everything that we didn't do in those final weeks. So I think really living a life that is in alignment with your chorus values is so significant and important. Still with us today, and has changed very much because we're artificially clean now. We're not in our environment. I think that's something that's crucial, and it's missing from everyone's lifestyle. We're so content with working 9 to 5, 5 days a week, then going home, getting in the house and shielding ourselves from the outdoors, whereas that is such an important factor in helping your microbiome.
Everybody, welcome back to the Raw Cave Show. Zach Dean here, and I have a special guest, Kale Brock. Thanks for having me on in your room. Actually.
I know, we're in my studio.
This is Kale's studio.
Yeah.
So look, cheers for this. This is crazy. Social media and videos these days. It's just so cool to be able to interview someone who's so similar to me in a way, like health coach, or used to be a health coach, and now you really help people with gut health and nutrition. You've made a movie, the gut movie, and written a couple of books, the gut healing protocol and the art of probiotic nutrition. Got them here on the table, so I don't.
That's why Zach's reading on the table.
And look, just really keen to have a chat with you and delve into things around gut health, nutrition, travel. I know that you're an avid traveler, and also really into flow states. And you may have another movie coming out soon as well.
Yeah, well, we hope so. I mean, it's so early. I feel like I've been constantly just talking about ideas since we wrapped the gut movie, which was last November. It's been a constant state of like touring and promoting the movie and doing everything that you do when you release your first major film. And I feel like I've had ideas that I've wanted to pursue for so long, but I've just been talking about them. And at some point, I think you reach a tipping point where you go, I have to actually act on these ideas because I'm going to become that guy. My worst fear is becoming that guy who just talks, and doesn't actually do anything.
Yes.
So that's kind of what I've been up to lately. But it's funny, I had a mutual friend of ours who, through I think acting, met you, and then emailed or messaged me on Facebook, and he's like, hey, I met this guy who's like the same as you. He's like this Zach guy, you should totally meet him. And I think from there we connected on Facebook or something like that.
Like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And then we caught up again about a month ago. You did a community event, and there was a panel of a whole bunch of health coach and professionals talking about gut health, and I was like, finally get to meet this guy. So my just question off the bat, in terms of gut health, what is the one thing people don't know about gut health that you wish they knew?
I think the one thing that generally speaking is the idea of good and bad bugs. There's a misconception there, because even a bad bug can be good just in the right amounts. And what's more important, I think, than the bugs in your gastrointestinal tract and your microbiome is the environment in which you allow those bugs to survive in. So, our diet and lifestyle contributes to that mostly, and I think that is what's most important. A lot of us are trying to find a one-stop shop, like one pill, it's going to fix everything for my gut health, which probiotic am I going to take? And even though those little things are important, overall, what's most important is your long-term diet and lifestyle for the rest of your life, the next 80 years. That's what's most important. I posted on socials last night, this is something I say quite often, is that you're better off being 100%, you're better off being 80% perfect for the rest of your life as opposed to 100% perfect for 12 weeks. You know, don't get out of this idea that you detox, but then you just go and retox for the rest of the year. You know, it's so silly, and it's the same with the gut. You want to actually nourish it in a loving way for the rest of your life, and when you do that, funnily enough, subsequently, you nourish a healthy, diverse, robust microbiome. So that's really, I think, the biggest misconception that I've found, and that's something we tried to hone in on in the movie, is that diets can be different and people can still have excellent microbiomes in a completely different lifestyle, completely different diet. It really comes down to them following some really basic fundamental principles of health and wellness in general, which happens to support the gut microbiome.
What I really enjoyed at that panel that you were at the other month, talking about, you were in France or somewhere in Europe, and they eat their baguettes, which is full of gluten, and they've probably got cheese and stuff in it too, and then they take, what is that story? Tell me a bit about that, because I noticed in my experience when I was learning all these different dietary theories in my nutrition study, I was like, I'll try this, I'll try that, and I was so stressed to make it perfect. And then some people are just like, oh, whatever, and then they look healthier than me. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, totally. And I think going to Europe, it was funny, my girlfriend was like, I really want to go to Europe, I finished uni, I don't have a job, let's go. I had just done the movie, we'd just done the tour and sold out 30 shows, and I was like on a high, I was like, I gotta keep going with this movie, but I was like, alright, I'm just gonna do it, whatever, let's just do it. So we went to Europe for 4 months and sort of rolled around. First started in Morocco actually, and then went up through Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Croatia, Copenhagen, London, Amsterdam, did the whole thing. Tried to go as slow as practically possible, and sort of spent a month in France because we completely fell in love with it. And the story you're referencing, one of the things that I noticed in France was that people that it's a slow lifestyle. It's completely different. And everywhere was closed for 2 hours over lunch, from 12 till 2, everything's closed because all the workers just walk out and go and buy their baguette, and they walk down to the park and they all eat together in the park in the sunshine. We're in Bordeaux, which is like wine country in the Basque region of France, southwest France, and like you look to the side of the road and there's these beautiful parks running along the river, literally just full of students, of workers, all having lunch in these little social circles together. And I had something switch during that time that was just like, this is what's missing. We're so obsessed over here, we're sipping our green smoothie alone in the corner while our friends are off having a baguette and cheese, and they're probably healthier because of that. And I'm still not an advocate for going crazy on the baguettes and the cheese or the red wine for that matter, but perhaps the medium there, the middle ground, is we can eat really wholesome, healthy food together and slowly, and that's really what I learned. That's probably my biggest change and shift over the past 12 to 24 months, 1 to 2 years, has been to actually appreciate that more and appreciate that as actually a health intervention. It's not just part of, it's not separate from your health. Who you eat with and how you eat is almost as important as what you eat. So so I've tried to embrace that and bring that back with me here in Australia. We're trying to, we just got the new pad, and we're trying to like socialise as much as possible. No matter how much it can get a little bit stressy or whatever, like, we're going to make food for people or whatever. That the moment when everybody sits down and everybody's slow and we're sipping organic, preservative-free red wine, it's all just... I just think that, that's as good as taking a probiotic supplement,
Nice. I've recently started these broth nights at my house. Nice. So I've got like quite a social area, and I've got a pool table and ping pong table and darts, and I'm like, everyone come over, I'll make some broth, you bring over a healthy plate of food. So I know that there's no perfect diet.
Yeah.
But what are some foods that you must have must-have foods or meals or recipes that you think will really sustain a healthy gut or lifestyle for people?
Well, I think there's so many little sort of caveats and little offshoots we could go down, but one of the biggest ones is a whole foods diet. So starting off with whole foods, did it run around once? Did it grow on the ground once? And have they done much to it since? You know, those are really good questions to ask when you're making your dietary choices. And that sounds so obvious. People try to overcomplicate this whole diet thing, you know, and there's so many extremes out there now.
All right, everybody, write down whole food.
Whole foods. Right? Within that framework, there is little avenues that you can take for different outcomes. So it depends on your why. You know, is your why, I want to look after my gut for the rest of my life, or is your why fat loss? Because the two might be different. You know, if you want to strip fat really quickly, then maybe doing a keto style sort of diet works. You know, but that's not to say that will look after your gut long term. You know, cutting out all starchy carbohydrates will limit and starve certain types of bacteria in your gut, which confer health benefits to you. You know, so I'm a big fan. I think I've had all the tea.
All right. Oh,
you got the sludge.
Do you want that bit?
No. I have the sludge.
All about that
So
sludge.
this is a probiotic tea, actually. Yeah, so
Delicious. It's really good.
It's just a probiotic mint tea.
Yeah.
It's a small pot though. Sorry about that.
That's right.
With the whole foods diet, yes. So restricting carbohydrates can limit your microbiome to an extent, it's particularly from a diversity standpoint, or limiting diversity of your diet will limit the diversity of your gut microbiome. And the diverse gut microbiomes are being considered the healthiest. That's what we see. When I was speaking with Dr. Margie Smith, who's a molecular geneticist down in Melbourne, she does poo testing, you know, microbiome analysis, and she's saying that people who were paleo or keto had pretty pro-inflammatory microbiomes.
Wow.
She said people who were vegan, same thing, the microbiome lacked diversity. She found that the healthiest microbiomes were those people who had really diverse sort of Mediterranean style with a whole bunch of different foods, bit of everything, you know, because that's probably just a reflection of the environment and the ecology. When we have different carbohydrates coming into the system, they kick on and kick up higher populations of different microbes in the gut because they thrive off different bugs. And that's what we found in the film when I went to Namibia, and that's the premise of the film. I go and live with a tribe over there for a week. We found that I kicked off, you know, a bunch of different microbes that I didn't have, or were probably dormant at least here in Australia. Whereas going over there, having roots and tubers straight out the ground, living pretty dirty, having all those foods with dirt on it, little bush truffles and berries and all these different things, you know, that had a big impact on my microbiome in terms of a diversity point of view.
Like how big? Like, was it a massive difference?
It was quite a significant difference in a positive direction. Yeah,
so you feel like internally any different?
I mean, you're doing great poos. Like, that's, you know, a great sign for good gut
It's always a good day when you're doing a great poo.
yeah, right. So that's
you can die happy.
Yeah, if you're at home and you're wondering how the hell do I test my gut health?
Yeah.
Or just look at your poo.
Yeah.
You know. So that was one thing that we sort of noticed. And then the emotional benefits of being out in the African wilderness with a beautiful tribe of people, I think that was quite significant. And that would have had an impact on my microbiome. You know, there's a lot of studies to show that stress and the gut-brain connection is bidirectional. It's not just the gut affecting the brain, it's the brain affecting the gut. That's where the saying scared shitless comes from. You know, we get so scared that we shit ourselves. You know, so like there's so many examples of this incredible symbiotic relationship between what happens in our gut and the rest of the body. And I think we can fuel and nourish that with a whole foods diet. If someone's healing their gut, that's going to be a different diet to someone who's nourishing their gut long term. So if you don't have a good balanced microbiome, you can have the whole foods diet and have all the carbohydrates and stuff, but you'll end up just feeding the bad bugs because they've taken over, whether it's from antibiotic use in the past or too much sugar in the past. Most of the time it's just antibiotics because we know we've just used them frivolously over the past 80 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it needs to be based upon the individual. What are their goals? Are they trying to heal their gut and overcome a certain condition? Then they'll probably need to go back to basics and follow more of a GAP style diet. You know, lots of broths like you spoke about before, and salads. If they can't handle or tolerate salads, it's cooked salads. So, you know, having them in the broth or steaming them, little bit of just basic meat and protein, things like that. And then slowly reintroducing other foods and other starches and different varieties of foods to challenge the microbiome into diversifying without letting those original troublemaker bacteria kick over.
Populate.
Yeah, so it's a convoluted topic, you know, and it can be, it can be a very difficult one to navigate, but basically it does come down to the individual person.
You were saying the carbs. So are there a particular, obviously, like white bread and white pasta is probably not the best form. Are there best? What's the best type of carbs that you noticed?
Well, I just think we have a plethora of vegetables available that have brilliant carbohydrates in them, you know.
All right.
And you know, and that's things like sweet potato, even white potato has a lot of resistant starch, cooked and cooled. I'm not a huge fan of white potato. I just think it's a little bit, you know, bland in terms of from a nutritional standpoint.
Maybe if you're camping, bit of butter
like
and salt, you know.
Yeah. So sweet carrots, beetroots, zucchinis, and then the thousands of different vegetables that you can actually access. And then we've got awesome fruits as well, like tomatoes, cucumbers, lemons, limes, avocados, and then the sweeter fruits like apples. You know, harder bananas have a lot of resistant starch in them. Resistant starch is amazing for your gut bacteria because it resists digestion in the small intestine and then gets digested in the large intestine by the bacteria. And that's obviously very beneficial because the bacteria then produce metabolites which are really anti-inflammatory and good for the bowel and good for the rest of the body as well. But again, it's a variety of carbohydrates that we need for our gut microbiome to thrive. If you're, you know, it's funny, we've got veganism kicking off, which is
it's gone crazy.
Is huge now, which can be, I think, a very healthy diet for the right person and with the right goals. And then we've got we've got carnivorous, the carnivore diet or whatever it is now. Well, there's like even further. There's like carnivore now, which is like raw just meat.
Oh, all right.
It's just meat, like no vegetables and stuff. So I know it's like, God forbid that we just moderate, you know, and land in a balanced state somewhere in the middle.
Would you be able to do, like, with your studies and the research is like, okay, Monday's vegan day, then you've got meat day, and then you've got variety Mediterranean day. Like, would that be good, or is it on a one day have the variety?
I think it is the one day thing because that's, you know, the rest of your life and that's sustainable.
Yeah.
I don't think if you scheduled in various extremes, you would find balance because you would seesaw the microbiome in a big way. And just like anything, the microbiome wants to find homeostasis and balance. But it'll adapt and shift very quickly. You can shift your microbiome within 24 to 48 hours, you know, based on what you eat. So that works in two ways. It can be very positive because you can eat healthy for a couple of days and then shift your microbiome and start to get the benefits from that. Or you can eat really badly for a couple of days and start to experience the subsequent effects of that. But it's great, you know, it's a essential survival mechanism that's probably thousands of years worth of evolution or design or whatever that's still with us today and is changed very much because we're artificially clean now. We're not in our environment. I think that's something that's crucial and it's missing from everyone's lifestyle. We're so content with working 9 to 5 days a week, then going home, getting in the house and shielding ourselves from the outdoors, whereas that is such an important factor in helping your microbiome to thrive.
Sunlight?
Well, not so much the sunlight, but actually interacting with nature, so getting a little bit dirty, you know, and putting your feet in the soil or getting in the ocean and picking up bacteria that way, eating foods from nature. You know, I do like to do some seaweed harvesting or some, you know, wild foods or whatever at the beach, even if it's just picking up aloe vera or dianella, like some indigenous foods, or herbs from the beach. We've got a native rosemary style herb here. There's so many ways that you can sort of work on the microbiome.
Cool. What about exercise and stuff like that? Like, you know, I love CrossFit, and I'm a big fan of just like pushing it. But I had some injuries, so I'm like, oh damn!
Surprise! CrossFit caused an injury.
One day I'll get back there. Just those muscle ups, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, can over exercise cause too much stress and then affect the gut microbiome?
Anything that causes stress will affect the gut. Yeah. But exercise is sort of the new. It's one of the new areas of focus with the gut, and they're sort of testing and studying it now. It's generally, they find that people who exercise more have healthier microbiomes. Whether that's because people who exercise more eat better, they're starting to try and use exercise as an intervention in a study, but they just released one, but it was kind of a little bit loose. There were a lot of factors that they weren't able to control, which is always the case with any diet. There are so many variables that come into it. But hey, exercise is incredible for you. So, you know, and as part of being a human, we need to do it. My whole thing is get outdoors and do it, you know.
Don't think about it, just do it.
Yeah.
What about, like, where do you find these studies? Can people go check out these studies online?
Yeah, well, I write about them on my website, but also often now, previously it was me trawling through, not trolling, internet trolling.
This is a joke. Hell sucks.
So I'm trawling through various publications like Nature or...
As a website?
Nature.com, the scientific journal. Or waiting on news announcements from the MCRI, like Murdoch Children's Research Institute. I've followed Mimi Tang's story there, the peanut allergy studies. Or it's a lot of it now is people tag me on Facebook. They'll tag my public page and be like, "Hey, Kale, did you hear about this?" And it's it's a study published in whatever University of Toledo or something, in Illinois, or just these random places, spots, like showing that whatever. X does this. So I'll just report on ones that are interesting, and nowadays it's more taking all that information, asking the experts themselves. I've done so many interviews now with really competent practitioners, which is excellent. That's where I learn most.
You have the Udemy course, and there's
a few online courses.
Interviews.
And we did like the Gut Healing Summit. I did a while ago, and then before that I was doing the podcast. I'm just about to launch a new one, which will be a little bit different to just gut health. So that's honestly where I learn most of it, most of this stuff, and then sort of taking it and putting it into a message that's comprehensive and hopefully a little bit entertaining for...
Digestible.
Yeah, digestible. Very good pun.
Sorry, finish that.
Well, I think that's it. So now it's just... I hope that my work in this field has been able to break down barriers that have been there in the past. We've tried to make gut health so esoteric and technical, when I think the fundamental principles of it are what should be emphasized, and then the technical side of it can be honed in on if people need it. But if everybody just ate more vegetables and more colour in their diet, we'd all have healthier gut microbiomes. So that really boiled down, that was my message. In the end, it was how can I get as many people to eat more colourful vegetables and more salads throughout the day? Because we're lacking, the average person is lacking.
With obviously, the chemicals in our environment everywhere, herbicides, pesticides. Obviously, I'm sure you recommend organic, but like...
No, I'm a big Monsanto fan.
All of that. GMOs where it's at the top of the food pyramid. Like, where do you shop, and like, do you have any tips on healthy, cheap shopping and how to get? Because there's a lot of families that I find are struggling financially, and it's that convenience of going somewhere for like $1, $2 and getting a KFC chips or whatever. Which are delicious, but like really bad for you. You know what I mean? Do you have any tips on like how to create a like budget around healthy eating?
I think it's not just for people who are living on a tighter budget. It's for everybody. We vote with our dollar. When we choose to actually go to the farmers markets and buy straight from the farmer, we vote that you know, this is a more preferred option. And that's why Coles and Woolies and all these places are going for that farmers market feel, and they show the pictures of the farmers and all these different things. I think it's really important that we do that as much as possible when you source local food, because your local food has picked up microbes that are a reflection of that environment in which you live, and they'll help you thrive in that environment, you know. So
it's like having bees, the honey from the particular area. If you have the honey from a particular area, the pollen won't affect you as much if you have allergies. Because it helps our body kind of deal with that.
Exactly. One of my teachers early on, one of her teachers, used to eat the dirt of wherever she went. So she would go to Africa. I probably wouldn't recommend it now because there's too much Monsanto around.
What? How long ago was this?
Oh, this was probably, I was being taught, you know, I went through a big 8-year sort of intensive process 10 years ago. So yeah, but some time previous 10 years, she was, you know, sort of eating dirt as her sort of
well, that's the future right there. Supplements, you know? This is dirt supplements.
Well, that's why you have soil-based probiotics. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, but you're probably a little bit more controlled with soil-based probiotics. Nowadays, you know, you can't just go and eat and stuff because it does have pesticides and all these different things, you know. And we've just found out, finally, in the courts that things like Roundup do cause cancer, and they definitely contribute to an unhealthy microbiome because they are microbial killers. They're just like antibiotics. So yeah, it's hard.
This is the soil, right?
Well, what they spray on the plants. So I think for someone who's on a strict budget, how do you take power back and eat healthy food? It's in the garden, and it's having a garden in your house and being really switched on with that and prioritising your time at least enough to have a significant portion of your diet coming from that garden, because you can control where it's come from. You know, you can control the soil and what's sprayed on it, and it's mostly free. Once you spend a couple $100 or even $50 getting it all set up,
it'll pay for itself.
It pays for itself.
Yeah, awesome. One of my mentors, he asked me the question, what's more important, success or health, or are they the same thing? Yeah. And it's just, that should be the focus, health, wellness, because you can't do anything without it, you know.
No.
And then in terms of like water and hydration and things like that, you know, I know that tap water can have like chlorine and stuff like that in it, which can affect our microbiome. Is that an issue here in Sydney, or is that something that people should consider, the water that they're drinking?
Well, yeah, they put those things in there to kill bugs, to make the water safe, you know, because they don't want waterborne diseases like we've had in the past. So I completely understand it. Maybe the application of it has been a bit sort of skewed by vested interests, but I understand the principle of a clean water supply. However, you know, the reality remains that these are antimicrobial agents designed or used to kill bugs, and we are full of bugs. So naturally,
even sanitizers too, right?
Yeah.
On the hands.
Well, they're often way worse than the bugs we're trying to kill. 98%, 99% of all bugs are either harmless or beneficial. The 1 or 2% that are bad.
So that again, 98%.
I don't know the exact number, but I believe it's 98% of all the bugs that we know of.
That's amazing.
Are actually either safe or beneficial, and 2% are bad. So please don't quote me on that, because it may not be the exact correct numbers. But it's around that number, you know, and we've just become obsessed with the bad ones. And the chemicals are in those agents are antibiotics, you know, and our skin microbiome is as important as our gut microbiome. It's a very essential part of integral part of our immune system. So yeah, all these things come into it. I just use a filter, you know, because I don't want to have to buy plastic and contribute to the environment in such a negative way. So I have a really good filter that I use, and it
was really interesting. My girlfriend's studying nutritional medicine, and she was learning that on food packaging, if it's less than 5% on the ingredients, they don't have to put it in the ingredients.
It's crazy.
It's just like, what is in the stuff that we're eating?
I know. Well, that's why you've got to go back to Whole Foods, because, you know, the ingredients list of lettuce is lettuce. You know, the ingredients list of kale is just kale. Yeah. So, yeah, that's really what it comes down to. But, you know, I'm a sucker as well. Like, if you looked in my pantry now, we've got some organic corn chips and, you know, other things that I know are not ideal But you know, those are foods that you're not so often foods. You know, and the majority of the diet.
That's your bad food, right?
Yeah, well, that's kind of like the food where you're like too tired or too busy to actually cook a meal from scratch. I totally understand that. You know, I like to eat out as well. I love the social aspects of eating out, especially because I work from home on my own.
Just getting out
and having a coffee with someone, or having a smoothie, or going to my friend's cafe and getting a broth or whatever. Even if it's just going and getting some pho, you know, which is broth based.
God, that stuff's so good.
So
sometimes.
good, so nice.
I was at this Thai place in like Chatswood, and I was asking all the Thai restaurants, "Do you have MSG? Do you have MSG?" And like they're like, "Oh, I don't know." And I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go with this and then eat it, see what happens. Like I'm just gonna enjoy it with my friends rather than stressing about the MSG." And I ate it, and we're like, "This is the most delicious pho I've ever had in my life." Like food isn't supposed to taste this good, you know? And I had a headache the next day. I was like, okay, that was MSG in that one.
And that comes down to you sort of knowing, having your safety nets. Like obviously getting broth from my friend's cafe. He owns Rough and Bear, which is expanding like wildfire, which is pretty cool. But you know, they use all organic ingredients, and that, you know, I can go there knowing that everything pretty much on the menu is going to work and be very safe and made with love and all these different things. You know, just having those things and allowing yourself
it's catching on, hey?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Speaking of, some people, you know...
well, here, I don't know, the northern beaches though, like especially here in Sydney, it is a bit of a bubble, hey?
Oh, it's a total health hub.
Yeah. You need to go a few hours west. You know, and there's definitely no bone broth at a cafe.
No. Totally.
But my question is coffee. Like, does coffee... Obviously, we're drinking tea, epic, tastes yum. With coffee, does that affect or does that give more variety too? Does it support
all the studies support that it's good for gut health.
Really?
Yeah, so they've found a lot of bifidobacteria growing on coffee grounds in coffee stores. So that's a sign that they're there and they enjoy the substances in the coffee. And coffee drinkers are generally shown to have good, healthy microbiomes. So you can't really argue with that. But I would say it comes down to the coffee. The coffee's pretty heavily sprayed. So you want to get a good organic coffee. I just try and get whatever organic coffee, and I'll just have it with an almond milk or whatever. But again, it's not... I'm not one of those people who has to have coffee. Like, I'll often just want a warm drink, so I'll make a turmeric latte. And I just mix like a half a teaspoon of turmeric with a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, both powdered, and then that's your turmeric latte mix. And I heat it up.
So just raw turmeric and
so the powder, turmeric powder, cinnamon powder, together in a little pot, and then we hot water it and mix it, and then put the almond milk in and froth it in the coffee machine.
Nice.
And that's sort of our coffee alternative.
That turmeric latte mix, some of them are like delicious, but so expensive.
Some of them suck though too.
Some of them suck
so bad. I had one the other day and I was like, this is not good at all. It tasted horrible. So
$6.50 sometimes when you go out as well, and you buy it at the store, and then your mouth's all yellow, and you're like...
You just want to go back to basics, and that's another cheap hack.
What was I going to say just then? Coffee. So hydrotherapy, colonics, and like cleaning out your large intestine through the other way. Like, what do you know about that? Is that beneficial? Can you do it too much? Are there tips to help support people who are needing to go through that process?
I was always taught you should heal from the inside out and the head down. Coming in the other way, I'm still sort of not totally sure about. And the reality is that when you completely clean out the bowel or the colon or whatever, you wash out good bacteria as well. So yeah, that for me just says it all. You know, we should really focus again on long-term environment as opposed to short-term interventions. Not to say that the short-term interventions don't work. Sometimes they're necessary, and absolutely, but I just think we give them too much weight. It really comes down to the long-term environment, and colonics, you know, might be helpful for someone who is really toxic at the start and use it as a cleansing system at the start, and then slowly builds. And, you know, putting in a probiotic enema or something like that would be a good idea after doing colonics. So yeah, just working with a good practitioner to actually encourage that and make that happen. Yeah.
My fascination with health and wellness is that if I can feel the best I can, and have a high vibration of like my energy, and come from a really grateful place, with my vibe, I feel that I can attract more of what I'm looking for, and whether the people that I'm meeting or the business opportunities or kind of all that type of thing with family. It's just a nice vibe. Do you think is that your fascination with flow and understanding, like, the cleaner you become, do you find you have more flow in life?
I think I've sort of landed on flow incidentally when I was younger, being a surfer of 16 years now.
Sweet.
I just constantly found myself going back to surfing as this thing that I was so grateful for that I had throughout my high school years, which could have been so tumultuous and scarring. But I think because I had surfing, it was so easy. I had the easiest time at school, no matter what was going on in school, whether it was social problems or whatever, I didn't care, because I had surfing. And even in year 12, I had all my frees that I would go surfing. I wouldn't do homework. I'd go surfing and then I'd come back and do the homework, because surfing was just my saviour, and it worked. Like I was top of my school and I got the marks and stuff like that, but that was just my process. So I started questioning, like, why do I have this thing for surfing? What is it? So I started doing a lot of research and sort of landed on flow state, which is just a state of human consciousness where you experience extreme states of awareness. So you're very deep in the moment. Time can either, we've heard about this before, time slows down or time speeds up. And 5 hours can pass by and you've done the best work you've ever done in your life. So, or you can be in a tube surfing or whatever, and you remember every single moment of what the lip was doing and what it looked like, and you've got pictures in your head, so time slows down. So I started looking at extreme sports, which is where this sort of flow state is extremely very prevalent and relevant at the same time as well, because those sports have progressed so fast compared to other sports. And that's where I started getting really interested in it, because extreme sports are such a visually entertaining and interesting thing to watch. And then the neuroscience behind it, and talking about the chemicals that are released in flow. Please don't ask me to talk about it because I don't know it is equally fascinating. So looking at both those topics, and then the implications of flow, and how using our devices and sitting on social media and the things we do now and working front brain all the time is actually actively taking us out of flow. And then looking at the mental health statistics and what they're like now, I think to a large extent that's being contributed to by a lack of flow. Of course, a myriad of other factors as well, but I think flow is something that we haven't really dug into enough yet. So I'm hoping to do a lot more work in that space and sharing that. I've shared a lot for a long time now, but I've sort of allowed the topic to sort of cook for a little bit more.
Marinate.
Yeah. So hopefully I'll have some stuff coming out in the next sort of year or two on that.
I'm a big fan of creative, I don't know, whether it's music, singing or dance, or just like or even just leaving my phone and going for a walk into nature, and you just kind of like, this is like, what are we doing? What are we doing like this all day? And like, it's just
basically we're front mind all day, so the prefrontal cortex is hyper activated. So it's overactivated for the average person here in the West, because we spend so much time here, we're working, we're blah blah blah, but not in a creative way. And when we disrupt that and we go into flow, the brain doesn't actually become more activated, it actually shuts down the prefrontal cortex. And that's the area of your brain where that inner critic comes from. the incessant voice, you know, am I doing this right? What about this? What about the monkey mind? All that gets shut down. And there's a complex chemical cascade that goes on in the background where basically it enables the brain to build more neural pathways and be more creative and problem solve better. And then when you do get back to work, there's a carryover effect as well. So you go out and I go surfing in the mornings or swimming in the mornings or whatever, I come back and work, and that's my most productive time because I've just come out of flow. So I think the implications of it are huge, and there's a beautiful documentary on Netflix. I think it's called Resurface.
Okay.
Yeah, and they take a bunch of veterans with PTSD and take them surfing as a therapy. And this has been going on for quite a while, and they're starting to link the two together. Is it flow that is actually helping these vets come back online again as human beings? Because obviously they come back, and some of the stuff they've seen is so intense and they're quite damaged. How do you undo that?
Is it the surfing, or is it that's what they love to do?
It's not just the surfing. It'd be the flow elements of surfing. So whether they could also take a dance lesson, they could do other creative activities where the brain initially perceives something as life or death. And it goes, okay, I need to shun all my resources into the present moment. I can't be thinking about, oh, I look fat today. I can't be thinking about, oh, I've got that job to do. It's total immersion.
Nice.
Total immersion therapy.
Yep. So
it could be surfing, it could be snowboarding, it could be rock climbing, it could be walking in nature. If you can achieve it with that, I find just walking in nature is too easy. So my brain wanders. I need to be challenged. I think that's why people get addicted to CrossFit and these different things, because they have to be really in the moment.
It's survival. It's like you're trying to get this time mode. Your body's like literally dying. Afterwards, you're just like
But that's why I think we get addicted to it.
So, I love it. For me, I do a lot of coaching, and a lot of my friends will come to me sometimes for some tips, and they're like worrying about those critical things, like, I'm not smart enough, or I can't. Or one thing is like the sharing on social media, because social media has just kind of exposed who we really are, and sometimes for people to share that on social media. But I know that some people, one of my friends particularly, his business would do really well if he just started sharing on social media. And I'm like, bro, there's no time for that. Like, you have such big goals, like, don't worry about that. I don't know where I was going there with that, but it's just like, do you have any other tips for like how to calm down that monkey mind and just kind of...
I think challenging yourself with new activities. That's why people go through these midlife crises, and go and take up dancing or acting. I'd see so many acting people in their 40s who have come to their first class in their 40s. And they just go, I just needed something, because when you're doing a scene and you're in front of the camera or whatever, even if you're presenting to camera and, it's in presenting as well, you have to be very present. Even, especially in the first stages, after a while you can get good enough, I suppose, to think about the other side of the camera as well. But that's one example. A dance class, a music class, a singing class, a sport class, whether it's wherever you live, whether it's snowboarding or surfing or skateboarding or skiing or rock climbing or bouldering or, and if you are older and not able physically to do those things, maybe it's more your chess games and your more mental gaming activities which require a lot of present state awareness.
Probably not Pokemon Go or something.
Maybe not Pokemon Go. Anything screen related is probably not going to. There are some things that will start coming out soon, some hacks and games which will take us into flow, and arguably a lot of the gaming that's going on takes us into flow anyway. It's just what we soak up during the game may not be the best time to be in flow. So there's a whole variety of different things you can
maybe like virtual reality, but like in the bush or something. But that's just like, what's the point of
but you miss the point.
It's just, the world's changing so quickly.
It is. But if you think back to a typical more primal situation, there would be so much time spent in flow, because you're always surveying the environment and taking things in and assessing danger and all these different things. And it's that potentially that danger element which really kicks off flow, because the brain says, no time for anything else, got to stay alive.
You're on.
number one instinct, stay alive.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it is.
I think I get that when I have a cold shower.
Yeah. I'm like cold therapy.
I'm like, there's no
else
time
goes
to be
on.
depressed, and I did a post on social media. It was like it was like probably not the best post. It was like, you're not stressed, anxious, or depressed. You're just not breathing properly, or something like that. And people hated me, blocked me. That's just kind of how it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, I know that I've had times where I've like, I was stressed growing up. I didn't fit in. I was not smart. There was the expectations that I had in my mind. I just wasn't happy, and I was like, I could totally end it. I never did it, obviously, but it was like, I didn't want to be here.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, how can you say this about depressed people? But I find that I was depressed, and through breathing cold, going to the beach all the time, like getting out in nature, good nutrition, I've been able to strengthen my body and mind and focus and stuff like that. With all that is so important. But particularly with your presenting, like you've been training for quite some time. Were you quite a nervous kid? Were you? No.
I was pretty outgoing until about probably 12 or 13, and then sucked it all back in once I got to high school, because I was like nervous about all the stuff you go through, like being criticised or whatever. I'd never felt like I was part of a big social group, because I was always often not many surfers and things like that in Adelaide, which is where I grew up. So I was always hanging out with my brother and his friends, and then when they left school, it was kind of like, okay, I got 2 more years of this, I may as well just do the work and then get out of here. But yeah, no, it was an easy transition for me, but that's me. We've got to find things and live a life that's in congruence with who we are. Otherwise, of course, we're going to be anxious, because we're totally off track. And something is calling within us and saying to us, you're off track, please stop what you're doing. And that's
feedback, right?
Yeah, it's like, feedback.
Come on, wake up.
And that may cause us to be anxious or depressed, And I think even just bringing this back to the health thing, which is what we sort of started with, we're now looking at those conditions as very much a case of inflammation, of poor gut health, poor nutrition, poor lifestyle habits as well. So maybe incorporating meditation and stress reduction techniques and things like that. And then looking at, okay, what's going on here? Whereas when we approach these conditions with there's nothing you can do, you've got this because you're unlucky. That is the most disempowering thing. But unfortunately, people like that scenario because it means there's nothing you can do about it. Just sit back
and
become
a victim. It's easy
victim.
to be comfortable sometimes.
Yes. So it's this very delicate topic that I suppose, talking about on social media, I stopped doing that ages ago because it was like you, same thing. I remember saying early on, this was before all the media did their stories on it, I was like, depression may be caused as well by nutrition.
Right.
And people were like, no way. And I think I quoted Anthony Robbins, who said suffering is an excessive focus on self. And as well, it just blew up. It blew up in my face. And I was like, okay, this is not the right way to go about it. Let's let that topic simmer for a while. And then, all the research is coming out now. I mean, there was a study done at Deakin University down in Melbourne recently that showed that just following a Mediterranean-style whole foods diet was able to reverse 33.3% of patients with severe depression. Reverse it, not just help it, actually meet criteria for remission of that depression.
Wow.
And that's in a 6-week study.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty huge.
Yeah.
So we're seeing these things come out now, and we're seeing the mice studies where probiotics are used to essentially mitigate stress response, and we see mice exposed to stress without probiotics, germ-free mice, and their cortisol goes like that. And then we have mice who have been treated with probiotics, exposed to the same amount of stress, and their cortisol's just, a slight normal curve. So it's coming, and it's hard to swallow if you're someone who's been told this is not your fault. And again, it's no one's fault anyway, because you can't make informed decisions until you're informed. But the trick is to actually get informed so that you can empower yourself to take control. That's the empowering notion of this. It's you are in control here. not your genetics, not what you've, up until you're 16 or whatever, when you've relied on other people to look after you. They can be troubling circumstances in that, which will of course contribute to a stressful situation or lifestyle. But once you are on your own, once you become informed, it shifts. It's instead of what will fix me, it's like, how can I fix me? So yeah.
There was this, because you interviewed John Ellerman too,
yeah,
right?
microbiologist. Yeah.
So I interviewed him too a couple of years ago. I was like, I saw it on your Udemy course.
Yeah.
And he was saying that there was these rats or the mice with the ladder and with the food on the other side
and the water underneath.
Yeah, and then they studied the confident rats, and they could go across the bridge and get the food or whatever, the water, but then they took I think the good bacteria out of them and gave it to like a nervous rat or something like that. Did you hear that?
I don't know
that one, but it was like the one with poor microbiome wasn't able to cross the bridge because it had less, I guess, variety and confidence because of its. And I was like, all right, I'm going to start focusing microbiome and my gut health, and I swear my confidence has improved incredibly. Like I don't get as nervous.
Yeah, and that would be a multitude of factors going on, but what I try and tell people is that it makes sense to work on your gut health because it's such an underlying fundamental part of the human biology. When you do that, everything else is going to work better. So you'll hold your chiropractic adjustments for longer. Your core will actually start working because you're not toxic around this area, and it's safe for your core muscles to actually turn on again. All these different, and then of course you've got balanced neurotransmitters because 90% of neurotransmitters are manufactured in the gut anyway. And then serotonin goes on to make dopamine and melatonin, so you might be sleeping better. So all of a sudden your immune system's switched on again. All these different things that stem back from the gut. So the worst case scenario by you actually working on your gut health is that everything else you're doing works better. So it makes sense to start there. This is what the underlying problem has been of Western medicine, is that we do not treat the underlying cause. And the underlying cause one of the biggest underlying factors is what's going on with your gut and your microbiome.
Switching to say supplementation for a minute. What are some supplements that are really good for gut health that you've researched?
Probiotics I think are great. That's the obvious place to go. I think everybody should be taking a probiotic just because everybody's been exposed to antibiotics.
Right. And
probiotics tend to modulate the environment in a way that allows our own microbiome to come back online. And that's really important because our native innate microbiome is the healthiest microbiome for us because it's been developed in conjunction with our immune system. So everyone should take a probiotic, but some food-based supplements that I really love to encourage people to take are aloe vera. That's one of my absolute favourites, and then bone broth. So those are two really...
raw aloe?
Yeah.
You just go and pick it?
Yeah, so I'm about to put up a video on my channel showing people how to use aloe because there's so much misconception about how to use it. But basically you take the inner leaf, the inner gel, and use that, and it's incredibly nourishing food. And then something else actually that's been on my radar for a while now, and I'm doing some interviews with some doctors in this space, is seaweed. An incredible source of
iodine and vitamins, minerals.
But also the soft fibre, because it doesn't have to grow out here and be exposed to heavy amounts of gravity and stuff. The fibre of seaweed is very soft, so it's very easily digested by gut bacteria. It's very easy on the digestive system, and it's got a lot of the mucilaginous gel, which aloe vera has as well. So it's very nourishing for the gut lining, and it's one of the most minerally rich foods on the planet. Beautiful. It could solve all our agricultural needs. It's our environmental crisis could be solved by seaweed. It's an incredible
it soaks up
food.
Pollution and stuff, right?
Yep, and
oils
it's
and
totally sustainable. Australia has that many native species that we have all over the beach, and nobody's using them at the moment. So I'm trying to change that in a way. Yeah. In America, they're starting to do it. It's seaweed is everywhere.
I've been putting it in my bone broths lately. Yes. Kelp, Tasmania.
Yeah, great.
Oh, it's so good.
It's amazing.
If you put too much in, it becomes this like...
And it's like jelly, hey?
Yeah. It's,
when you rehydrate it, it's like super jelly.
It's yum.
And you can have... We've got these things that we have on our store. We've got like bags of kelp, dried kelp, and then you put them in your bath with you, and the whole bath becomes like slimy.
Oh,
it's
really?
like
It's like a
slimy
mud
water.
bath.
So it's like incredible for your skin.
Yeah,
as
wow.
well. Yeah.
It's going to help. So the minerals, because our skin's an organ.
Yeah,
So it's
you
gonna
just soak it all up.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
It's just like putting aloe vera on your skin. You know, like it works so well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Might give that a
A
try.
few little hacks for you guys.
Yeah. It's so funny, the whole word hacks. Like, I've listened to a couple of podcasts, and it's just like on sleep particularly.
Oh, yeah.
And how everyone's wanting nootropics or these hacks to
Yeah.
like better our performance. I believe that's a good hack. Like putting aloe vera, like putting the kelp in the bar, like that's cool.
Yeah.
But they were talking about sleep and how sleep is just so good for cognitive function,
Yeah.
repair, and like, I have a friend who is an incredible business dude, and he sleeps 5 hours a night.
Yeah.
And he's been doing it for years, and he's been crushing it.
Mm.
He's healthy and goes, and he looks great. Like, but with your studies, did you see that less sleep causes more challenge for the digestive system, or,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
less?
sleep fragmentation, I believe, is the correct word. But basically, disrupted sleep has an impact on the microbiome. But like I said, anything that stresses the body will have an impact on the microbiome. It just adapts and changes depending on what you're doing. So, and it just so happens that when you have disrupted sleep, that it changes in a more pro-inflammatory way, and you experience more leaky gut, so that the integrity of your gut lining is lost when you disrupt your sleep. But the same could be said of stress, of having too much gluten,
Excess
or
stuff, or
not prepared properly gluten, or being around Wi-Fi too much. Like, all these things would have an impact on the gut. So yeah, it's just interesting to see the studies confirming that, and then seeing how people react to, like, oh, we're so surprised that the gut and sleep are linked, and it's like, well, don't be surprised.
Yeah.
It affects everything, and it's affected by everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how can people stay in touch with you? Where do you want people to find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of over the internet now. At Kale's Broccoli on social media. So that's my real name, by the way. Kale Brock is my real name, not Kale's Broccoli. But that's my social handle.
Yep.
And then we've got the website where you can find links to the Gut movie and stuff. Internationally, you can see the Gut movie on Vimeo. Within Australia, it's just in cinemas right now. So we're up to like 50 sold out shows. So it's gone really well. So
Awesome.
we're just working on some wider distributions and things like that. But yeah.
Awesome. Maybe I should do a little screening of the Gut movie on my off nights.
Actually, you should.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Can like people get the DVD and
Well,
do
you
little
can
viewings?
organise screenings. Like, especially we're trying to hit more of an international audience. So what you can do, we work through FanForce, which is pretty cool. This company who came on board to help like independent films, and you apply through them to host a screening.
Okay.
And they basically set a tipping point. The tipping point pays for the cinema or the hire of the whatever, and then the screening gets confirmed at the tipping point, and then anything else.
So that people buy the tickets through them based on your community.
Yeah, so it's a
cool.
community-driven, on-demand sort of
That's
thing.
awesome.
It's really good. So that's how we've done the second half of the tour. The first half of the tour was like literally me and my business manager going around to every cinema in Australia. Like the month of November, I was non-stop, like flying every couple of days, sometimes once a day.
There was events on Facebook everywhere.
Yeah, it was crazy. So it was great financially and stuff, paid the film and all that sort of shit, which was kind of what we wanted to do. And then since then I've been like, it's, let's just let other people do it. So yeah, we're trying to get that happening more because it's a good way to build up a bit of community momentum with gut health and get a discussion happening. That's the whole intention with the film, was to just get people talking about gut health.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to give people hacks and definitive answers on gut health, because there are none. But just to discuss the whole idea of the gut-brain connection, of allergies, of poo transplants and where that's going. And then, couple it in with a pretty and hopefully aesthetically pleasing journey to Africa, which is one of the most photogenic places in the world, Namibia. So it's a good film, and we're doing a couple little tinkerings with it before we hopefully shove it out to the rest of the world in a bigger way.
So my final question. If you had just 30 seconds your last 30 seconds on planet Earth
Yeah.
to share a little message to people.
Shit.
Like, yeah, no pressure.
Momentous.
And and health related flow, I don't know, it could be anything. What would your last 30 seconds little, bon voyage
Wow.
be? I'm just going to keep talking so I can help you keep thinking.
I don't know. I actually just think relax.
Yeah.
Just relax. Like, slow down. We're rushing ourselves. It's like we're in a rush to get to our deathbed. It's crazy. We rush through life and then we retire thinking that that's going to make us happy, and we get sick and then sit in the hospital for 10 to 20 years in and out, and then we pass away and we regret everything that we didn't do in those final weeks. So I think really living a life that is in alignment with your chorus values is so significant and important for your health and well-being and for life. That's probably most of our core values come back to family and love and all those sort of things. So I would encourage people to really get those things on track. And if you're not talking with your own family or whatever, or something's going on there, then create one. I think community is so key, and we see across cultures who live really long, healthy lives that community is at the core of everything. Food is based around community, and lunches are taken over 2 hours. Yeah, these different things. Have a think about what's really important to you and try and live a life in alignment with that.
Boom. That was awesome.
Probably 60 seconds there. But
no. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Check out Kale online. And man, you could have said something health related, but I connect so much with that, values and family, and doing what lights us up is the most healthiest thing we can do.
I think so.
So everybody, thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.
See you guys.
See ya. Bye.